I'd like to introduce myself as Jim. I'm 80 years of age, and I've had blepharospasm for about 37 years. I had a difficult time when I first developed blepharospasm, and I had the characteristics of closure of eyes involuntarily at the wrong time. And I was able to finally get diagnosed, but actually it took me more than 10 years before I got diagnosed with blepharospasm. I saw psychiatrists, I saw psychologists, I saw ophthalmologists, neurologists, all of the specialties that we normally associate now with the problem of blepharospasm. The problems I had, initial diagnosis was as a result of many, many visits to the doctors, and finally finding one that actually knew enough about it to put a name to it. And it's somebody that we all know in the field of blepharospasm today is Dr. Jankovic. I also have had relatives that have had blepharospasm. My mother had blepharospasm for a number of years and was diagnosed in the 50s. And at that time, usually the treatment was some type of psychotropic drugs, and tears, liquid tears, were usually the diagnosis or the treatment for that particular problem. And for a number of years, from 1970 to 1983, actually, I had very, very few treatments that were effective for my blepharospasm. That was before the time that we had Botox, that now is the choice treatment for blepharospasm. I also have a son that's with me, and he has developed blepharospasm. My other two children have not developed the problem. So Bill, why don't you tell us about your problem?
Hi, my name's Bill, and I guess my experience is a little bit easier. I guess I consider myself pretty fortunate. It took me a very short period of time to be diagnosed, and actually the hardest part was to find a doctor that would treat my particular problem the way he does, because my treatment and my father's treatment are entirely different. I'm still very functional as far as being able to drive and operate a business and take care of the normal daily functions, but I still suffer from a lot of apraxia, ptosis, the side effects from the Botox, the amount of Botox that I have to have injected. But it still leaves me as a functional part of society, and I feel very grateful. In a way, my father had it first, or it would have taken me a long period of time in order to be diagnosed with the problem, but I grew up around it and I saw it, and I pretty much knew when the first symptoms started that I needed to get in and seek treatment. So it was very helpful in a way.
Right.
And also with the support that my family has made it a lot easier for me probably to deal with, in that I was able to see what needed to be done and how to deal with it. So it's made my problems a lot simpler. I've had blepharospasms for 3.5 years, and my treatment schedule is on about a 5-week turnaround. I take no alternative medications or anything for treatment, just the Botox is the only treatment that I will use, which is some people use a lot of other things that I don't use. So that I'm still suffer from a lot of light issues, light intensity problems and things like that, and the light on this camera is really bothering me.
You know, that is distracting. I too I'm taking Botox. I've been taking Botox since 1985. I was in some of the first studies that were made with the Botox, and presently in the studies whereby we're studying NT201, which is a new Botox that's being developed outside this country, but for use in this country. We're hoping that it will get approval because I've received about the same benefit from the NT201 as I received from the Botox Toxin A. I've also participated in some other studies as far as the longevity is concerned, and also from the standpoint that there are familial relationships in my family, and that we somehow or another were picked to be involved with this problem, not with our own choosing, but something that just came upon us. I believe that's about the gist of what I have to say.
I think one of the worst side effects from getting the large doses of Botox is I do probably suffer a lot more from ptosis and blurred vision. I have, a lot of issues with blurred vision, and but the end result is that I can still function. So.
Yeah,
you have to do what you have to do.
Right.
And there's a lot worse things that I could have, and I realize that this isn't a terrible thing, and it's not the worst thing that can happen to you. That's for sure.
No, we've been blessed for somebody that developed the Botox as a type of treatment that works for us, and just hopefully we'll find at some time in the future treatment that be permanent treatment.
With people like you to get some of the guinea pig tests that have to be run to find out the new results on the new types of medications is very helpful for all of us.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that I can participate in the studies. Thank you.
My name is Madeline Dunn. I am 65. I discovered that I had this disorder in 1997, and I think that I had been having some signs of it 2 years before, a year or so before, and I visited my eye doctor who did an x-ray of my orbits, and it was fine. I struggled in the end of 1996 into 1997 with apraxia type symptoms. I had no idea what it was. I went to another eye doctor who said I had myasthenia gravis and started to treat it as that. Well, it didn't work. The medication didn't do anything. I went back to the first eye doctor who made me cry. He was not happy that I had gone to a neurologist instead of coming back to him for a test. I gave up on everything and kind of was couch-bound for a while. Went to an eye doctor in downtown Houston, Mary Green, and as soon as she walked in the room, she knew what I had. And she sent me to Dr. Jankovic. He agreed that I did have this blepharospasm, which I had never heard of before. I'm still not sure I understand it. I started doing the Botox, and I needed the Botox quite frequently. And frankly, Botox for me is not something that I am continued with because I thought my side effects were far more debilitating than the disorder itself. I've had a limited myectomy. Seems to have relieved it. I have bad days, I have good days. I take Klonopin, helps me sleep. If I have bad nights of not sleeping, I seem to have a worse time the next day. I am able to function most times. I do not drive anymore. I will not go back to Botox, not because of anything bad I've heard. It's just for my side effects are not worth it. So that's about all. My story is probably not much different than anybody else's that I hear every time we go to conferences. My biggest fear, I think, is that it's just the beginning of some other progression that's going to happen to my body. I've already started having some problems with tremors, and I can't help but wonder if that is something that is going to be my next issue. And that's the end of my tale.
I'm Ed Donzilla. I'm Madeline's husband. I'm not going to tell my age because I'm a little bit older than her. My main job is trying to keep her from getting frustrated. She thinks that laying down and taking care of her bad eyes is not the thing to do, and she needs to be busy, 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 which is not the case. We can survive without her being busy, busy. Fortunately, I was in a position to take early retirement, so I'm at home driving her crazy, as well as driving her other places. I know she'd rather I adopt more female characteristics, like going shopping and enjoying it, and visiting many, many stores. I can take her and get a job done, but then we come back home. We don't go wandering around the mall. So the main frustration I feel is not being able to comfort her when she has her bad days. I realize they're going to come. Fortunately, she has more good days than bad days, so we can still do things without being affected by what's happening. And that's the case. I just enjoy spending time with her and just wish she wouldn't be so frustrated.
My name is Gabriel. I have been dealing with this disorder since February of 2002. I got to the point where I had blepharospasm as well as facial spasms, and it did affect my eyes and went down into my face, my jaw, through to my neck. I actually had to get my teeth redone twice, and I would even get shots, the Botox shots, in my shoulders to help relieve the pressure on my neck. I do suggest, though, if you do have problems with the spasms moving down into your body, that if you get the shots in your neck, that my problem with that is that my arms would go numb, and then I wasn't able to function and be able to pick things up like I wanted to, and I literally felt like I almost had to lift one arm up to be able to help eat and things like that. So that didn't really work with me as far as treatment goes. I suggest on the Botox, if you do the Botox, that around the eyes, a lot of people say that they have problems worse when they get the Botox than before, and I suggest if that's the case, do not get the Botox in the eyelids, because the eyelids, you're already, with you pulling and everything else and doing all the things you do, they're already heavy enough, much less putting the Botox in there and making it even worse for you. So another good thing is if your jaw's hurting, this one doctor told me about doing it around the jaw area, the Botox, and that makes all the difference in the world on that. Another suggestion that just makes the world of difference for me, and my Botox lasted longer. I didn't have as much bruising. I didn't feel as queasy and nauseous and everything after the Botox. If you do a facial within 30 minutes to an hour, so you need to arrange it with your doctor where there's a place in the area. And with my doctor, he even has a lady now that does it within their building. So it just made a difference for me on that. Another thing that I did learn from the conference was, and I had been doing it, but not as much, is drinking lots of antioxidants. A lot of people don't realize when you don't have 5 to 7 servings of fruit a day, And compared to a capsule form and a liquid form, if you have a capsule form, people don't realize that your body only digests 30% of what that capsule is really supposed to be doing for you compared to a liquid form. So I do drink the Monavie. Now I've been on the Monavie for about 8 or 9 months now. I've gradually gotten better. It has not been just an overnight thing for me in any which way. My diet has definitely played a part in my daily life now. Exercise has played a daily part in my life now because I did want to beat this thing and I do want to go into remission. As of January 20th of 2008, I have not showed any signs of BEB. So I'm praying and hoping that that will still continue, but I don't, one day from the next, it's just different. Oh, the liver cod oil. Someone told me about the liver cod oil. That has just been great. I do suggest that everybody tries the liver cod oil, the Monavie, the facials, and that's pretty much my recipe on, feeling better and really coping with this.
Hi, my name is Mel, and I have blepharospasm, and this is what it looks like when you have blepharospasm. You look at the back of your eyelids. I started at about in 2002. I started having problems with my eyelids closing and didn't know what to do. Went to a lot of optometrists, ophthalmologists, and no results. They couldn't diagnose anything. Then I went to a neurologist, and he diagnosed me with blepharospasm. That was in late 2002. Near May of 2003, I started taking my Botox injections. I take them at the VA from a Dr. Lai. They seem to work. I get them every 3 months. I keep specific records and pictures of everything, my dates and what the results were. My biggest problem is driving, watching TV, and using the computer. I use all kind of different tricks. I've used headbands to hold my eyes open. The best elastic for a headband I found was the top of jockey underwear. Cut it off. It's less irritating and holds up the longest. I do know that many times eye patches have worked because for whatever reason. So what I've come up with now that I'm working on is sometimes I'll use my hat where you can see through it. It's like pinholes. They make pinhole glasses. But what's weird is that I can look right through this hole here, and it makes what I call tunnel vision the same effect as this here. And it helps, and I'm even working on with my sunglasses of taking that same material, which looks kind of goofy, and I can look through the pinhole and look through here, and it seems to help a lot with not closing of my eyelids. I really want to thank my friends, and I want to thank Shelley for driving me places. Many times when my condition is worse, it's very, very difficult to drive. Other times it's so-so. That's my story.
I guess I noticed it starting years ago, and the funny thing is prior to him really starting with his eyes, he had body tics, and I watched it manifest from one shoulder to the other shoulder, and then one eye side to the other eye side, and then both eye sides. And the frustration of running around to doctors and trying to figure out what was the matter with him for the longest, and no one could tell us until we finally reached the neurologist who had the specific diagnosis for him, so we could help get him to where he can see and alleviate some of the tics with the eye spasms. I guess everybody has their own trying to figure out what to do what works for them. And the more you look, the more you'll find, and not to give up. And Melvin has been one not to give up. Some of the concoctions are kind of outrageous, but when you're trying to see, when you know that you have the ability to see, but your eyelids won't let you, I guess you have to play around with what life has to give you. Masking tape, rubber bands, different glasses. So, and I try to help find things too. I do a lot of reading and all that, but support, I think, is the number one thing. And get out there and talk about it. And the groups have been wonderful too, because I didn't realize how large of this kind of the blepharospasm and all the other neurological symptoms. I hope that they would get more detailed into it. That's frustrating for me. It's knowing that it just doesn't seem to have enough research, and the patients are kind of frustrating, and it's frustrating for the helpers and caregivers of the patient as well. So I'm looking forward to a lot more research in this area to help out. But we can just hope for the best and keep up with the tape and the rubber bands, I suppose. And if whatever works for the time being, that's what you have to do. And hope for a cure one day. That's my main thing for him. I'd like to see something happen positive to get this in remission, or not so severe, to see it keep progressing. I would like to see it back off a little bit. But we do what we can.
My name is Victor. I was diagnosed about 3 years ago with Blepharospasm by the neurologist at the Baylor College of Medicine. This was done after extensive testing to rule out other causes of the problem. Initially, I tried prescription medication, but after about 2 or 3 weeks, it was obvious that that was not doing a thing for me. So we started Botox A injections at a level of about 40 units on an interval of once every 3 to 4 months. And there was success with that treatment. And I'm now up to about 100 units each time with reasonable success. The degree of success is variable each time. It's not always the same at all. But I do keep notes after each treatment, and I furnish those to the doctor, and such that he has feedback and can make necessary adjustments to the treatment. In fact, I need a treatment now, and I will be going tomorrow for my next series of injections. My symptoms included primarily just a strong urge to close my eyes, and of course at the most inappropriate times. This became noticeable about 12 years ago and became much more pronounced and evident about 10 years ago. And this was after several years of very high emotional stress as a caregiver and other stressful events in my life. I had noticed that closing one eye and touching the side of my face, the left side, near the eye, temporarily relieved that urge. Frankly, I did not tell anyone, nor would I share that with anyone for a long time, because I thought, well, they will think I'm crazy. That was so weird. And but eventually, of course, I learned that there was something to that touching of the face. Other symptoms included sensitivity to bright lights, particularly overhead, and the excuse me, and excessive blinking of the eyes, and also blepharitis and eye infections. Currently, I wash my eyelids and face the first thing every morning with tea tree oil shampoo and warm water, and that has been very effective, and eye infections and blepharitis is no longer a problem at all for me. So I was glad to find something that helped in that area. I'm reasonably good health for my stage in life, and good health is very important to me. I spend a lot of time and effort to stay healthy and keep knowledgeable on new developments, health-related developments. I try to live a balanced life, although I do not get as much done as I used to do. I'm fortunate in that I am comfortably retired engineer and have been able to manage and adjust to not doing as much and not having the efficiency level that I used to enjoy. I do want to emphasize that my religious faith and daily prayers have sustained me through all situations in my life, and I am a Methodist, and God has blessed me in many ways, and I'm very thankful for that. I find that humor in life helps tremendously, and try to maintain a good sense of humor, look for the humor in everything that occurs. And I socialize some, and I think it's important to maintain activities and exercise and diet, and I try to always have a backup plan, because Murphy's Law just seems to follow me around, and as you know, if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. And so I try to plan for that and adjust, and when it happens, I just finally got to the point I can laugh at, well, Murphy got me again. But anyway, I do want to emphasize the benefit of support groups, and I certainly encourage participation in support groups. It's certainly been a blessing to me. I've been in Alzheimer caregiver support groups, and then after my wife died, in grief support groups, and now in Blepharospasm support groups, and I find it's very, very beneficial. But that's pretty much is my story, and I hope that someone will be benefit from my life experiences. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Kenneth, and I'm from Beaumont, actually Ryder, Texas, and back in 1989, I was working, and my eyes kept closing on me, and I really didn't know what the problem was, and I had went to my doctor, and he sent me to this other doctor, Dr. Height. Then Dr. Height diagnosed me as having Blepharospasm. Then he sent me to Dr. Divinicki in Houston, and then I was diagnosed with Blepharospasm. And they put me on, clonopin, but also, do you take it? They said I've been taking it for anxiety and depression, and but when I went to Dr. Holly, he told me to go ahead and take off work because I had Blepharospasm. That was in 1989, February the 17th. February 19th of 89, and when I was working at a paper. I won't say the name. My eyes was closing on me, and I couldn't concentrate, and I kept. Well, I was getting pink slip after pink slip because I couldn't understand why my eyes was closing, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't do my job right, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't remember nothing because my eyes were, and I was having all kind of problems. And the people didn't mean to laugh at me. They didn't understand the problem. They didn't understand because my eyes was closing on me. They was saying I'm going to sleep on the job, and the boss would get on to me for walking around with my eyes closed, and I told him I don't understand. So I got scared, and that's when I went to the doctor, and then I got diagnosed. And to brief it up, is I was driving, and I run off, my eyes closed on me, and all of a sudden, when they closed on me, I had to pull off the road, and I just started praying, and I got scared. Then my eyes went up. Another time I was driving, and I run off the road and blowed a bunch of tires out. I didn't understand it. Then when I tried to get disability, no, I was joined like so much. I was on long-term disability for 2 years. And then the problem was is when I went to file for Social Security disability, well then they said that that Dr. Height and Dr. Genovic, it goes on a vocational. Vocational means that you can train for another job. And I never did qualify, and I haven't qualified because they said I'm able to work, because they said that even though you diagnosed with Blepharospasm, they said you can't get it, you'll never get it. So I got turned down. I applied in September. So it's been, to wrap it up, I was turned down. I applied in September, then I was turned down. But all these years, every time I went back, they said that you're able to work, because of vocational. I went to the judge, and before the judge, and the vocational guy kept saying that you can go to another job and work. He said if a blind man can hold a pencil, if a blind man can sell pencils, then you can go somewhere and work. So I'm just going to end it that way.
My name is Wanda, and I had a little bit different experience coming into this than a lot of people have, because my cousin had the same thing. My cousin's 10 years older than I am, and she had it for several years. And she lived in San Antonio, and she came over here because no one in San Antonio would give her the Botox shots. And so every time she drove all the way over here for the Botox shots, she stopped by our house on the way home. So I had heard about this, although I didn't really know any details of it, but it didn't come as the same thing, and I knew the doctors. So as soon as I started to have a problem, I went to Dr. Patronelli, who she had gone to. So that short-circuited a lot of things.
So why don't you start and tell them when you first noticed your symptoms? What were the first symptoms?
My first symptoms were extreme sensitive to light. I worked in Greenway Plaza, and when you came out in the afternoon and you turned west, which I had to do to go home, that west sun just hit you and my eyes would go closed, and I'd be driving down the freeway holding my eyes open, which is not real good in freeway traffic. And but it still didn't take me as long to find a diagnosis for it as it would have if I'd been entirely on my own. And actually the National Institute of Health, when they were down here, gave me an examination, and they went to San Antonio and examined my cousin, who's 10 years older than I am, and she's still driving, and I'm 80, so I
Well, why don't you tell them when that all started? Your first symptoms started when you were how old?
They first started when I was about 60, but they were kind of mild, and you just.
And then they kept increasing, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you retired because of it, because you couldn't.
I couldn't drive my car and do that.
And why don't you tell her your first experience when you started having that? You went to get the Botox, and you tried Botox for a year.
It didn't work. It didn't do a thing for me.
In fact, you had a reaction to the Botox.
Yeah, it had some, I've forgotten what they called it, but it was a reaction to it. And so I very quickly went in and had the myectomy, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, she's really had tremendous results after that myectomy. And I don't think she realized until after that surgery how closed her eyes were all the time and what a limited visual field she had. And it made a tremendous difference. Now, I still think, you know, she's still obviously very sensitive to the sun and probably cannot read like she used to read or anything like that.
No,
but
I miss that because I've had my head in the book ever since I could pick one up.
Yeah. But the surgery after that year of Botox not working and very frustrating. But the surgery from Dr. Soapharker.
And every time I took the Botox, it had some kind of an effect, and it did something it wasn't supposed to do. So it just wasn't working.
In fact, her eyes would water and swell up. And by the time the reaction part, it took several months. It was time then to go back in and get it again. So that obviously was not for her at all. Did not work.
Didn't work at all. But the surgery was wonderful.
Yeah. So really, I think hers has been very successful. Now, she obviously cannot drive, and, you know, there's some limitations, but it's been remarkable.
But I have Sharon.
But I'm the driver.
She succeeded.
Yeah. And that surgery, the myectomy, it was extremely successful, you know, so.
Shockingly so. I mean, you know.
And I found out when she went to Dr. Soapharker, though, what he was telling me, I went back to see him months later, is that he said I was a candidate for just, you know, getting my vision would improve if I had the excess skin. It was cosmetic surgery done on my eyes. And when I went in to see about that, he told me I wasn't a candidate. Then I had rosacea in my eyes, which I had never even heard of. And he said, do not get the surgery, because, you know, all growing up, I always had a lot of allergies and obviously very fair skin with probably some rosacea problems. And I was very sensitive to the light. I still am. And obviously rosacea has been contributing to that. So he said, just be careful and don't do that right now.
As far as I know, I don't have any rosacea.
Yeah. No, she's got something, you know, so we're going to be kind of just watching, like he said. We're going to be watching for all this. So, but I think it's been very, you know, she's had a success story, so I hope people will, you know, hear that and have some hope. And that the surgery was excellent. It just was wonderful.
Hello, I'm Glenda. I have benign essential blepharospasm, cervical dystonia with a head tremor. A lot of the times, if I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing, my head's just bobbing up and down. I don't have it all the time, thank goodness. The blepharospasm gives me quite a bit of problems. I have a extreme light sensitivity. That causes problems for me also. Back in 1995, my symptoms began with what I would call fluctuating vision. Primarily my close-up vision. I would go to the ophthalmologist. He would give me a prescription for glasses. I would get the prescription filled. And back then it took a little while to get your glasses back, but 2 weeks later when I got my new glasses, I couldn't see. So I went back to the ophthalmologist and I told him that I couldn't see, and he had given me the wrong prescription. He assured me that he did not. He re-examined my eyes and determined that in a 2-week period of time that I had a 2 diopter change in vision, and gave me another prescription. I got more glasses, and that seemed to be what happened for quite a while. I would get new glasses. A couple of months later, I'd get another pair and another pair. That got to be pretty expensive after a while, and it just didn't seem to matter. After I had the glasses for a while, my vision would miraculously or unmiraculously change again, and I couldn't see. I spent most of the time with my glasses off. It seemed that I managed a little bit better with close-up vision with my glasses off. I didn't have this problem with distance vision, and it didn't affect my driving at that point. I didn't know what was wrong. The ophthalmologist didn't know what was wrong. He referred me to a neuro-ophthalmologist who did all sorts of eye-to-brain tests, and they couldn't come up with anything. I just seemed perfectly normal to them with all the testing, and they couldn't tell me why I was having the blinking problems and the fluctuating vision problems. For the next 3 years, I saw a multitude of neurologists, ophthalmologists, dermatologists, allergy specialists, trying to find out what was wrong. I was a woman on a mission, and I wasn't getting my mission accomplished. No one seemed to know what was going on. I was told that I needed to seek psychiatric help. At one point, I knew that was wrong. I knew that I was a mentally healthy person, as mentally healthy as most people are anyway. And so I just kept looking for a diagnosis. At one point, I went to a dermatologist, and she told me that she wanted me to see a friend of hers who was an ophthalmologist. So I went to his office that afternoon. She had called ahead of time and made sure he could see me. I walked in, and he said, "Yep, I know what this is." And I said, "Well, tell me about it." And he said, "Oh, no, you need to see one of my associates." So he took me in to see one of his associates, and they both looked at each other and said, "Yep, she has it." And no MRIs, no blood work, no tests, just looking at me, they determined that I had benign essential blepharospasm. And of course, they told me that Botox is the standard treatment for blepharospasm. Well, that scared me to death because I know what Botox is, and I didn't want anything to do with it. Well, after I did a little more research, I found out that Botox is safe for people to take. A lot of people do it. A lot of people have done it for years and years and get a lot of relief from it when they have blepharospasm. So I started taking the Botox injections. For 2 years, I took Botox injections, and I took the injections from very well-respected people in the movement disorder field. So I feel that the doctors were doing the best they could do, but I didn't feel that I was getting a good result from the Botox. In fact, I felt that I couldn't see quite as well. I had blurry vision. I had quite a few side effects. So at some point, I stopped taking the Botox. Then I went on to seek other treatments. I tried drugs. There were so many side effects from the drugs that I decided that that wasn't for me either. Eventually, I had a limited myectomy. At the beginning, it was wonderful. I had no blepharospasm whatsoever, but over time, I started blinking again. I think that it was something that was very worthwhile. I don't think that I would be driving today had I not had a limited myectomy. But it didn't fix my problem. It did not cure me. On a twice-day basis, I use tea tree oil shampoo for eyelid scrubs. I use very warm water, and I seem to feel that that helps me quite a bit. I use eye drops throughout the day. I have very, very salty tears, and I think diluting that salty tear film with eye drops seems to help a little bit. I want to show you another thing that helps me drive, and that is these really, really ugly sunglasses. These are sunglasses made for fishermen. They're called cocoons. And I have the FL41 tint that Brain Power Inc. makes for them. I'm not pushing anyone's products, but I'm telling you what works for me. These FL41 glasses and the cocoons that fit my face really help me keep my eyes open while I'm driving. So I wanted to show you those. I try to lead an uncomplicated, less stressful life. I took early retirement in 2003, so I don't have the stress of trying to drive to and from a job, looking into the sunlight every day. I've always worked west of where I live, so I'm driving into the sun in the morning and driving into the sun in the afternoon, and I didn't seem to have any other choice other than move or retire. So I took early retirement. I try to stay positive and upbeat. I don't dwell on the negative. If I'm having a bad eye day, then I just take care of myself. I stay at home. I lie down on the couch. I get in my recliner. I pet my kitties. I just do things that feel good to me and try to stay unstressed. So how am I doing today? I'm doing okay. It's not great, but it's not bad. It could be a lot worse. I still drive, and as long as I can drive, and go places that I want to go and do things I want to do, I think I'm okay. If I'm not having a good eye day, I don't get behind the wheel. The last thing I need is an accident. On my perfect record of 25 years with no tickets and no dings in my car and no wrecks. So I want to keep that good record up. So on bad eye days, I just stay home. I do want to say that I think the cure for blepharospasm will be found in the field of genetics. And I salute BEBRF for their contributions and efforts in the area of genetics, the research that is going on there now, and I hope the research that will go on there in the future. I thank you for listening to my story. I need to tell my story, and I think we all need to tell our stories. It helps us feel better. To hear other people's stories, you realize that you're not the only one who has this. You're not alone out there, and there's some comfort not in knowing that everybody, that a lot of other people have this, but there's some comfort just in knowing that you're not alone. And so I do encourage you to tell your story to other people. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amelia, and 5 years ago I was diagnosed with blepharospasm and cervical cranial dystonia. And my symptoms at first were all of a sudden, extreme light sensitivity, very, very dry eyes that I thought might have been from allergies. And so I was sort of dismissing it. And then probably the kicker was that my left eye at the end of the day would be just drooped. It would be closed, okay. So, but meanwhile, before I could get the eyelid checked out, the light sensitivity increased. So I started going to, like a whirlwind, to many different ophthalmologists, and I kept getting not clear answers and differing answers. And so then I went to my internist, and my internist said, I think you have blepharospasm, but, I asked her how to spell it and wrote it down. She said, yes, we're not putting that as a diagnosis because you have to go through all these tests before we can figure that out. So that just started the journey with seeing a neurologist and then a neuro-ophthalmologist who also diagnosed it and sent me to a wonderful neurologist here who deals with movement disorders. And he confirmed it, that I had blepharospasm and cervical cranial dystonia. And right then, I started with the Botox injections. So I was getting Botox injections every 4 months until a couple of years ago, probably about 2 years ago. And then it decreased to every 3 months. And then I'm now getting treatments from both a neurologist and an ophthalmologist. And the ophthalmologist is trying some different things in terms of exactly where he's putting the injections, and has suggested to have the injections every 2 months, which I've had for like the last 6 months. So fortunately, it's been helping a lot, and the bruising and the ptosis that I was having also has decreased the amount of Botox that I've been receiving each time. So the bruising, I don't know if they go with it or not, but the bruising is decreased, and also the ptosis is, I haven't been having that. So I'm feeling very fortunate with that. There's no question when I was diagnosed, I was bummed, okay? I was sad, I was disappointed, I didn't know what I was going to do with this. I knew that my driving was already limited because I was driving into the sun, going to work, and driving into the sun, coming back home from work. So my eyes really, really hurt. And so what we did do was we were fortunate to find a place, a home that was close to my work, like a mile away. And I was not anymore driving into the sun or away from the sun during the work day at least. So I was able to continue working, and I had the energy when I got to work because my eyes weren't so tired by the time I got there. So fortunately, I've been able to continue working. And one of the things that's been an absolute bonus for me from this, well, first let me say that my family is amazing, has been amazingly supportive, and my friends are wonderful. So I've had a great support group besides the people that I've met at our Blepharospasm support group meetings that you've heard today, and telling their stories that are wonderful people, and also the people that I've met at all the conferences. We've gone to the conferences since I was diagnosed. So again, marvelous people and amazing physicians that have spoken and have shared their knowledge with us and shared their expertise with us and talked with us individually, and just what a treat. It's been incredible. A bonus that I would have never expected from this, okay, because all I could think of was this is a bum deal. My face felt distorted, my eyes felt distorted, my neck felt distorted. So besides the pain and the light sensitivity and the dry eyes and all of that was just all the complementary therapies that I don't think I would have ever taken the time to do. So besides taking the time to do them and to explore them and to meet fascinating people that are involved with it, it's also helped me. And I've just sort of learned something from every one of them, so I've really appreciated that. So what I do is 3 or 4 times a day I put hot compresses on my eyes for at least 10 minutes. I do meditation. I do yoga and Pilates. I try to do each of those once a week. And I do aerobic exercise, weightlifting, probably about 5 times a week. On my diet, I keep trying to get healthier and healthier because I think all of this stuff goes together. One of the toughest things for me to do is to get more sleep. It makes a big difference when I get more sleep. It's just hard fitting everything into the day. So I just try really hard to keep going to sleep a little bit earlier. I'm not very successful with it, but I'm trying to work on that. My work, I work a full practice. I did limit my hours. I was working too many hours, but that has worked out well, and it's just added some more balance to my life, I think. Also, what I do daily is I take flaxseed oil with peanut butter. I take fish oil, many vitamins, and I'm trying to think what else. Oh, I do clean my eyes, face with tea tree oil because that has helped too. That's another thing that has helped me. I have many different pairs of sunglasses. Oh my gosh! And I have the FL41s that I don't wear all the time. But I have those. I have smaller sunglasses. I have larger sunglasses, many sunglasses that wrap all around my face, and anything that I can do in terms of the sunlight, which has been helpful. Oh, the other thing, I'm sorry, that I didn't mention is that I was getting injections in the back of my neck, which I haven't had for a while, and rather than that, what I've been having is massage once a week, specifically on that area, and that has really helped tremendously in terms of relaxing those muscles too. And I think that is it. I want to again, just say that I'm very grateful for the Benign Essential Blepharospasm organization, and for the people that I've met, and for the literature I've read, and for the research that's going on. And thank you.
Well, I've had blepharospasm for at least 4 years. After looking at some older pictures of mine, I've come to realize it's been going on for about 8 years. Initially, the usual routine: go to the eye doctor, tell me more eye drops, go see a psychiatrist, get the stress out of your life. The last one was an absolute joke, of course. After a while, I found out what was going on by searching on the internet. In doing so, I tried all sorts of over-the-counter treatments, and after a while, some of them had some really bizarre effect, and I started finding ways to medicate myself. I'm an electrical engineer, no work in the medical field or anything like that, and haven't been under a doctor's care the whole time because I don't have any insurance. I've been using scopolamine patches, transderm, and lorazepam to get by during the day. The lorazepam works real nice. It's a good emergency pill that I can take 15 minutes later. I can be driving, do what I need to do. The scopolamine is more long-term. It dries you out, so if you've got dry eye, it's only going to make it worse. Also, you have to pretty much use a lot of eye drops. A good benefit of it is no colds, no flus, because it dries you out so bad, the cold and flu bugs that thrive in your mucus don't stand a chance of surviving. Also, no sinus headaches. That's a fine routine. I've been able to get by that way. It's not something I would recommend. It's pretty hard on most people, and everybody's a little bit different. I got 2 boys in high school, which you can imagine how hectic that makes everything, and keeping up with them. Eventually, I'm probably going to go try Botox. I haven't tried it yet. I think one of the other things I might mention is medicine. I've been able to get what I need through various ways and get it quite cheaply. For those that, even with insurance, there's all sorts of places running $4 or $5 generics. You'd almost have to be living in a cave not to see it. And even with your insurance, these stores will usually have it, same thing, much cheaper. There's lots of ways to cut down on medical costs. Also, it really does help to be proactive, pay attention to what's going on with you, in that this way when you talk to the doctor, at least you can talk sensibly. They don't want to hear your emotional appeal or whatever. They want to hear facts. And the more facts you give them, the better the conversation's going to be. As in, okay, well, this medicine did this to me. And sometimes you need someone else close by to tell you what's going on with the medicine you're taking, because you may not realize the changes in you that somebody else could see.